Hey guys, well, it is another fantastic week in November. The air is cool and we are rocking again in front of the camera. Of course, we've been on hiatus with the Perry National Fair, a couple other festivals, and of course the deluge of peanut season that always keeps us busy. But we are back and we are here to do this cool item here, which is the punch J-hook. Now, you've heard me do the S-hook before, you've heard me do the S-hook before. You've seen me do the S-hook before. Well, now you're going to see me do the J-hook. And, you know, not that we're going to go through every letter of the alphabet, but these are two of the most basic things that you can work on as a smith. A lot of folks always ask me, what do I need to make for my table when I go sell stuff? Well, this needs to be in your toolbox. Again, it is simply a J-shaped hook, but this has got a couple of techniques I've thrown in here to kind of give you a flavor and start working up some of your skills. One is the pigtail, 2 is the fullering, and 3 is that cool little punched hole right there, because that hole is not drilled. Now, if you're doing production work, hard to beat a drill press for putting that through there. But if you're doing a demonstration, you're doing something authentic, you want to be able to punch all of your holes, because that's the way it was done, and it's very hard to hide the fact that it's not you know, if you drill it, it's going to look drilled. It's going to look machined. You can't get away from it. If you do it the old way, I'm not saying that you have to do it every time, but you need to know how. So guys, sit back, relax, and let me show you how to make the punched J-hook. We're going to start this out pretty simply. We're going to make a good, nice taper. You can get really fancy with this. It just depends on how much time you want to put into it. I'm going to take one more heat and go ahead and draw this out, because I want a very nice, gradual tapering point on this guy, because I'm going to curl it with my scrolling tongs. You know, a J-hook is a J-hook is a J-hook. It's kind of like the S-hook. I mean, this is one of the most basic pieces that you can do. You can get as fancy with it as you want. You can incise it. You can do all kind of crap to it. Just, you know, your imagination is the limit. You know, this is one of those basic things that you need to have in your toolbox. You use J-hooks for making wall racks, all that kind of good stuff. So this is really a basic build-em-up item. We're going to have a little fun with this guy, because not only am I going to put the little curl on the end, I think I'm actually going to take one of my fullering tools, put a couple of grooves in it just for the heck of it. This is one of the mainstays of my demonstration. So this is something that you can do pretty quickly to an audience and not get too worn out. Now you can see I've got that fine taper I was looking for. I'm going to take one more heat and I'm actually going to round this whole guy. I do not want it to be square. So with this one extra heat, I'll go ahead and round her up. Remember, be very careful while you're heating that thin tip. It will melt off on you if you're not careful. Babying it just a little bit. Now I'll come back with one more heat up here, because a lot of folks don't go ahead and work this area, and when you make your bend, it's incredibly difficult to work that bend once you've made the hook. So if you're going to do the rounding, you need to do all of it beforehand before you start making any of the bends. Okay, now you can see our piece here. We've got it pretty well worked out. Now, again, it's always easier to do any type of decorative work with fullering tools before you do any bends, and that's what I'm going to do again here. I'm going to guesstimate that I want to start doing a couple of fullers right in this area. So what I'll do is take another heat, work it up just a little bit more to be rounded, and then use that fullering tool to put 2 grooves in it. Why 2 grooves? I don't know. I just thought it might look cool. That's how a lot of this stuff works here, you know. It's not like I have a plan for this crap. There's that little bit of extra heat. And very quickly I'm going to slap in my fullering tool here. There's my first groove, and before I lose that heat, go ahead and pop in a second one. And there's my second groove. And now I'm ready to start doing the bending, and we'll get ready for doing our punching here in just a moment. So let's take our heat to the front, curl this over, and then do our pigtail. Or strike that. We're going to do our pigtail first, then we're going to do the rest of our curl. It's getting close to 5 o'clock, folks. The brain ain't working. All right, guys, remember, if you're dealing with that thin end, you've got to be very careful. It will heat very quickly, and it will burn very fast. So be very slow about bringing it up to heat. We're going to use our scrolling pliers here, tongs, whatever the hell these things are, and we're going to make the pigtail on the end of it. Nothing too complicated about this. Okay. A little bit of freehand, and there's the pigtail. Now, for my next trick, it's pretty cool. We want to be able to make the J of the J hook, but we don't want to damage that pigtail, but we need to hammer on it. So what we'll do is we'll bring this entire thing up to heat, but we'll very quickly dunk the pigtail in the water, which will cool it and harden it. That way I can tap on it without damaging. I will use the horn of the anvil to actually make the J of the J hook, and then we're good to go. Then the next thing we'll need to do is actually cut this guy, spread the top of it, and punch the hole to hang it with. But let's take a heat. All right, guys, here's our pigtail. Let's cool it off. Let's go to the horn of our anvil. And guys, there you go. You need to straighten this up. It's got a little bit of a twist to it, so let me go to the face of the anvil and straighten it. But there you go. There is your J hook. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a heat up here on the top, cut it. We're going to turkey tail it a little bit, spread it out, and then we're going to end up punching it. Now, this, of course, is where you're going to swap over to using a pair of tongs, specifically a pair of tongs known as hook tongs, which are these guys right here that actually are designed for grabbing this guy here. So let me, we got the fire kind of contained today, so I'm going to put a little bend right there. I may cheat. I may go do that halfway cold. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to cheat a little bit, put some power to it. But let me get this cut, and then we'll get ready to spread this guy out. There we go. All right, here we go, guys. We're going to spread this top now. This is going to be our platform for punching. And there we go. You see we got the top spread, and now we just need to take our punch and go right through the top. Now, guys, for our punch, we're not doing anything fancy. This is it right here. I'll let you guys have a close-up of it here just in a moment. But this guy is nothing but a piece of forged 5160, which of course is leaf spring steel. You can use mild steel. You're just going to have to shape it and dress it a lot. One of the things for me that always kind of perplexed me is that, I expect you to be able to use a tool over and over again without having to fiddle with it much. Really doesn't work that way for punches and things. You're constantly having to reshape and redress your punches and your chisels, especially if you're doing them out of junkyard steel. So just be aware, it's something that you're going to have to use, clean up a little bit, use again, clean up a little bit more. Keeping the tool cool and selecting the right steel for it will be a great advantage. But you got to remember that back in the day, they did this with all wrought iron, so their tools lasted a lot, didn't last nearly as long as ours, but like I said, still a lot of work. So what I'm going to do is heat this guy up. We're going to put it on top of the anvil. I'm going to go in from the top first, go about 3/4 of the way through, flip it over, and then punch it through on the backside. And here we go, guys. Just set this right here in the middle. Couple of good solid taps to start with. One to sink it. You can see we've punched through it, or we're starting to do that end of it. You can see the back of it. We're going to go in again, and now you can see we really got where we needed to be. You can see on this back side you have that little plug there. What we're going to do now is that our next heat, we're going to go over to the Pritchell hole, which is the round hole in the back of the anvil, and actually go in from the back side here and punch that plug out the other side. Here we are. We're on the other side. Dial it in, and boom, there she goes. And what you have here, it's election day. It's the infamous hanging Chad. Flatten that guy out, and there is your punched hole. We'll come in with our grinder, clean up that top, scrub a dub, and we'll take a look at the finished product. Now guys, while I'm cleaning this up, I want to point out one thing to you real quick, because if you saw me forging that and you saw the end result where we were, you may have been looking at the top of that hook and saying, that looks like dookie. Well, you would have been correct. But let me tell you that just because it's hammered out looking like dookie doesn't mean that a little bit of file work or a grinder can't really make it come back to true. So when you're on the hammer, don't get especially hung up if one thing's not perfectly straight on the hammer. That's not the last thing you're going to do to it. That's why they made files. That's why they made grinders. So just a freehand hit on the grinder, and you can see makes this piece look perfectly good. So I'm going to finish scrubbing her off, hit her with the linseed oil, bake on a finish, and we'll be good to go. Like with many of the small pieces in the shop and our cooking utensils, I always enjoy putting on that baked-in linseed oil finish on my pieces, especially if they're small enough to drop into the quench, the oil quench. So what we end up having, guys, is this girl right here, your punched and forged J-hook with a little bit of decorative fullering. Nothing complicated about this piece, but this piece acts as a base for a lot of the other tools, and there's a couple of good techniques you need to learn in here. You know, a lot of people ask me, what should I make for my table? Well, you start with basic stuff like this, and then you make it kind of fancy. And this is what really teaches you how to blacksmith. But let's take a quick close-up look to her, and I'll kind of run down everything that's wrong with it. Now, guys, you know, you need to be your own worst critic. Now, of course, I've been doing smith work for over 20 years. Now, if I were entering into an art contest or anything like that, this is not exactly what I'd like to enter into an art contest as the demonstration of my skills. I'm one of those guys that does demonstrations, and I don't get hung up too much on making everything so dad-blame perfect. You can see that the hammer marks here are a little bit off. This guy was clearly off. The punch hole's not all that wonderful. But hey, it's a hand-forged J-hook. And I will guarantee you, if you put this out there on the table, you will sell this for $5 or $10. And that's what you need to be concerned with as you start your blacksmithing. Now, of course, there's not going to be many other I say fellow laughingly, fellow master craftsmen out there. There are guys out there that hammer circles around me. They're not going to be looking at my video to find out how I do a J-hook. So for you guys out there that are just getting started, this is where you start. And I would tell you in this particular case, don't get hung up on too many of these details. A lot of people think that they're going to bust out there and they're going to do 5 S-hooks or 5 J-hooks, and then suddenly they've got it down pat. Doesn't work that way. I have done thousands of these, and mine still look like garbage on occasion. So don't overly sweat the details. Get the basics down, get comfortable with the work, and then when you're getting ready to put in that juried art show for the best J-hook in the world, then get down to specifics. Man, is it 5 o'clock yet? Guys, again, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll be back next week with another video, yet more crud to look at. But outside of that, guys, thank you so very much for coming by, and I'll see you guys later.